Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on how to take control of the budgeting, planning, and forecasting process with TrueSky. I'm Sarah Novak, Marketing Manager at LBMC Technology Solutions. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started. Everyone has been muted, and if you should have any technical difficulties, please send us a chat or in the Q&A box. That's fine as well. Please feel free to submit questions anytime, and we will get to them at the end. We'll also be recording this session and sending that out in a few days' time. So at this time, I'd like to introduce you to Alan Whitehouse. Alan has over 25 years of experience helping organizations solve their business pains, and Alan is the Chief Software Architect at TrueSky. So with that, I will turn it over to Alan.
All right. Thank you very much. And just a sound check, you're still hearing me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Great. So what I want to start with is I'm going to kind of tell you about, some solutions that we have to help you with your budgeting and forecasting process. But before we launch into that, I'm going to go through some slides. You can't get out of doing a webinar without seeing slides nowadays. But I'm going to spend a couple before I show you our application just to kind of set the groundwork here. Now, I'm going to go on the assumption that most of you that are on this presentation are utilizing Excel as your primary tool for doing your budgeting and forecasting, right? And why are you using Excel? Well, in the end of the day, Excel is a very powerful tool. It's unbelievably flexible. It allows you to model any business process that you can think of. It's got a great calculation engine. It's got a really good, rich presentation layer on it. And you've got high user adoption because people have experience with it. They've used it. They know how to work with it. But unfortunately, Excel is not perfect. It's not a database, right? So things are not linked. It's not directly stored. It's not necessarily getting backed up. You've got a lot of manual steps involved with Excel, like getting your data into it out of your back-end accounting system or your CRM system or whatever the case may be. You don't really have any workflow with it. You definitely don't have any kind of audit trail over who is making what changes when. At the end of the day, you've got version control issues, right? How many of you have the same spreadsheet on your desktop with version 1, version 2, version 3, but you don't really know which was the last one that was edited or which is the final version, right? And the biggest problem with Excel by itself is that it tends to be error prone. In fact, there have been some studies out there that show up to 90% of all spreadsheets contain some errors. Now, some of these errors are small, but in certain situations, these errors can be huge. As an example, JP Morgan lost $6 billion with a B as in boy because of copy and paste error, right? You had Fidelity was off on their financials by 2.6 billion because of a minus sign was missing, right? So obviously in your environment, hopefully your errors in Excel are not quite to this degree, but you have got errors in your calculations. You've got errors in spreadsheets. And again, some of these can be material at the end of the day. So why should you look at an application to help you with your budgeting and forecasting process? And more specifically, why should you look at TrueSky? Well, TrueSky is going to allow you to focus on the high value items that you need to focus on rather than dealing with all the drudgery of doing budgeting and forecasting. And there's three main groups within your organization that we're going to help out when it comes to budgeting and forecasting. The first are what we call contributors. Those are the frontline people who are doing the initial entry of the data, right? We're going to make things go quicker for them. And we're going to take away some of the work that goes along with it. So again, we're going to make them more efficient at what they're doing. And you're going to see some of that as we go through. Then when it comes to the finance group, the people that tend to get that manage the whole budgeting and forecasting process, we're going to dramatically reduce your administration overhead time. And because of some of the controls and tools that you can put into place, we're going to increase the quality of the numbers that you're getting out of the contributors. And then ultimately, and the reason you do a lot of this budgeting and forecasting is to help your decision makers. Instead of giving them just raw numbers, we're going to be able to provide meaningful information that's going to help reduce your risks and avoid surprises. Now, when we were building TrueSky, we had three main pillars. First of those is to leverage Excel. Now, You might think this is a little weird that I just talked about all the problems with Excel. But we in TrueSky, we really believe that from an end user interface, Excel is the best tool that you can use for budgeting and forecasting. And why is that? Well, it's got rapid user adoption. You know, you don't have to really train people on it when they come into your organization about how to use Excel. They've already been using it for years. It's a tool that's been around for 30 plus years now and has a huge depth and breadth of features and functionality. It's easy to use, it's incredibly flexible, but we've also added a lot of TrueSky enhancements for your budgeting and forecasting. So we're going to let you to leverage all of the good stuff that goes along with Excel, but because of all the tools and features and functions and everything else that we have added, we're going to take away all the pain that goes along with using Excel in budgeting and forecasting. Our next pillar when we were designing TrueSky was to make sure that we could empower the finance group. And how did we do that? Well, first of all, we centralize all of your data. So instead of data being embedded in your Excel worksheet, it's now stored in a back-end centralized database. So enter it in one place, report on it immediately in another. No interlinking spreadsheets, no moving documents around. We're going to give you things like complete audit trails. We're going to give you not only application level security, but also data level security. Who can see what account? Who can see what customer? Who can work with what department? We're going to give you automatic and real-time merging of your data. One of the biggest pains of using Excel is that whole painful merge process. We're going to take that away from you. We're going to give you direct integration to your data sources, so no more dumping data out, copy, paste manipulation. We're going to help promote accountability in your organization. And thanks to our build once design, we're going to dramatically reduce the amount of time and effort it takes to manage the budgeting and forecasting process. And then what are the other pillars? We wanted to be able to facilitate knowledge. So we're going to allow you to easily involve more people in the budget and forecast process, more people who are closer to the action and who know their piece of the puzzle the best without increasing your workload. We're going to allow you to capture qualitative and quantitative values related to your numbers. So not just the raw numbers themselves, but what people are thinking. We're going to give you deep dive analysis. We're going to help increase your accuracy at the end of the day. We're going to give you decision level information. So before I go into the actual software presentation, just want to focus on a little bit of what TrueSky can do. Now, what you're seeing on screen here is some of what we can do, not everything that we can do. So when it comes to budgeting, planning, and forecasting, you might be doing things like financial forecast, compensation planning, sales and revenue forecasting, expenses, operational type planning, CapEx, project cost forecasting or project revenue forecasting as an example, production planning, inventory forecasting. Those are all the types of different data models along with a whole bunch of others that you can do with TrueSky. When it comes to reporting and dashboarding and analytics, you're going to be able to do consolidated budget reports. So immediately in real time, see how your budget's shaping up. You're going to be able to produce presentation quality income statements, balance sheets, and cash flows. So instead of having one tool to do your financial reporting and another tool to manage your budgeting and forecasting, you're going to have it all in one tool, right? Things like budget to actual variance analysis reports, FTE and headcount reports if you're doing things like compensation, as well as dashboards with KPIs. So again, this is not everything we can do, but this just gives you kind of an idea of some of the things that we can do. So with that, I'm going to launch over to our application and show you a little bit about what we do. Again, as you're going along, if you do have questions, please submit them in the question bar, in the question area, and we will answer those at the end. All right. So right now on screen, you guys are all seeing Excel. Okay, so to reiterate, our end user interface, which is what I'm going to show you here, is all based in Excel. So home, insert, page layout, and then this is where we come in, the TrueSky tab that gets added into Excel. The advantage of this is it's only one application that your end users need to go and to learn when they're doing budgeting and forecasting with TrueSky. A lot of other applications have you go to a web browser to start the process, then you're sent to a data grid, then you have to download into Excel, then you have to enter in Excel, then you have to re-upload. So you have multiple different steps, multiple different applications and interfaces to learn. Not so with TrueSky, just one end user interface. Again, end users pick up TrueSky very, very, very rapidly, which makes your lives easier as the group that's odds are who's on this call that have to maintain and manage and deal with the people that are putting the numbers in. Now, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time with this. We support multiple languages with TrueSky. So again, if you have international operations, cross-border operations, we can help support you there as well with different people working in the language of their choice, as well as how different countries tend to display things like the thousands separator and decimals differently. But what I'm going to focus on is this little button here called the Hub. The Hub is where an end user goes to see what they have to work on and what they can access within TrueSky. I'm going to focus on these two tabs, assignments and reports. Assignments are input sheets. It's how you get data into the system. Reports are just that. They're reports. Traditionally, you can slice them and dice them, but you cannot edit them. As an example, under financial statements, you can see I have access to these 4 different financial statements. And for, say, my annual budget cycle, I can access office expenses and travel expenses. This is what I see when I log into TrueSky. When another user logs in, they may see something completely different. Everything we do within TrueSky tailors itself and renders itself to the individual user based on their security settings and is what has been published by an administrator. Again, it's how we spoon feed usage of TrueSky to your users. It's how we reduce confusion. They only have to focus on what they're going to see here. Now, for this presentation, I'm going to focus on office expenses. Things that we give you, again, that command and control, that centralization, that making you more efficient. You're going to be able to control things like start and end dates. People can't start working on a budget cycle until they're allowed to work on it. And more importantly, when you're done with a budget cycle, and again, you can have unlimited budget cycles, unlimited versioning, even doing rolling forecasts, you can lock them out for making changes after you're done. So no more worrying about how do those numbers change. I thought we would finalize this. We also have a complete workflow approval engine built into TrueSky as well. This workflow approval engine will allow you to route your numbers through various different levels of approval that you can go. So again, as you get more people involved, you can have that whole approval flow, not just raw Excel documents floating around. Now, what I've done is I've opened up my assignment to work on admin expenses. And the first thing I'm seeing here is instructions, right? Again, you're not doing budgeting and forecasting every day, and I'm sure all of you are happy about that fact. But people tend to forget things. So we like to make sure up front they can see exactly what they're supposed to do, and including any kind of guidance, they can't increase by greater than 20%. So again, it's right there in their face. But the bulk of what I'm going to show you for right now is going to be on this secondary tab, which is called Office Expenses. Now down the side here, these are my filters, my slicers, my dimensions, my segments, whatever term you want to use, whatever you're comfortable with. Right? So in my example here, I've got a filter, a slicer for location. I have one for department. And I have one for currency because we also support budgeting in multiple different currencies as well. Now, in your environment, if you don't have multiple locations, great, you won't have a slicer for location. If you only operate in one currency, you don't have a slicer for currency. If you're doing a business process such as sales forecasting, maybe you will have slicers for customers or products. If you're doing compensation planning, you might have slicers for employee. All of these will be tailored to your individual situation. Based on the kind of budgeting process you're doing. If I wanted to work with a different location than the Seattle office, my default here, I can click my little edit button here, and up pops a list of all the different locations that I have access to. Now, this list is also controlled through security. So if I didn't get access to the Seattle R&D department, I wouldn't even see it on this list. Now, this list will also integrate with source data. So if we're pulling and integrating with your back-end ERP solution, whatever that may be, or some other electronic data source that you want us to tie into, if you add a new location, a new department, a new account, a new customer, whatever the case may be, TrueSky will pick it up automatically. You don't have to maintain 2 different solutions out there. I know some of you on this call, maybe you're looking at, or if you use things like Microsoft Forecaster, where you're actually having to maintain 2 different systems. That's not true with TrueSky. Again, we're trying to take the workload off of you. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and retrieve data from my Seattle office from my corporate department, and it's making a call to the database and bringing you back the most up-to-date information that I have available in the system. And it's through security, it is limiting what I am allowed to see as well, even in the body of the document here. So as an example, what you can see up on screen here is like dues and subscriptions. If I don't get access to this account, I'm not even able to see it up on screen here. Now, close my filter pane. What you see on rows, what you see on columns, color, shading, font control, completely up to you and how you want the system to look and to feel. I'm doing 12 months of budget and showing 12 months of last year's actuals and 12 months of variance. But you could have multiple prior years of actual, multiple prior years of budget on the screen as well if you want. I am budgeting monthly, but we also support daily, weekly, quarterly, and yearly as our time granularity. And different business processes can be budgeted differently. So maybe you're doing operational expenses monthly, but you want to do sales forecasting on a weekly basis. We support that kind of concept. I'm also budgeting on a calendar year, but we also support multiple user definable years. So you could enter on a fiscal year, report on a calendar year. If you're a not-for-profit, enter on a calendar year, report on your funding year. So again, a lot of different ways you can slice and dice your data there. But as a user, when it comes time for me to enter numbers in, I can just do click and drag like I can, or do direct enter like I can in Excel today. I can do copy paste. I can do click and drag. And if you look at the formula I am typing in, this is a true Excel formula, right? Not an Excel-like formula. So people don't have to learn any new syntax or how to work right there. So again, you get to leverage all of your existing knowledge of Excel. And the moment I hit save, my numbers are saved to the back-end database where they're instantly available to any other user to use in real time. No document check-in, no checkout, none of that kind of stuff. But we also give you control that you don't have in Excel today. So if I try to change an actual, I'm locked out and prevented from doing that. But at the same time, if I want to use my color scales, I have all of that available to me. So you get the best of both worlds, all the power of Excel, but that control that you need. But we've also added a lot of additional features to TrueSky that take us to the next level. I'm not going to have time to talk about all of them. I am going to focus on a few of them here today, though. First of all, complete audit trails. So anytime a user makes a change to a number in TrueSky, we track what was the change in the user and the date and time, right? Again, holding people accountable, no more of that. I don't know where that number came from. You can't hold me accountable for that. No more finger pointing, right? And if at any point in time, if I want to copy one of those numbers back, I can actually copy those numbers back into the system. So again, complete control, complete accountability. We give you the ability to add commentary to your numbers. And unlike embedded in Excel, our commentary is tied to the data and it travels with the data. So it's instantly available to all other users and on all other reports and input sheets. So again, it's not tied to Excel at all. Right here, I'm tracking the date and time somebody put a note in. I can add as many new notes as I want. I can even add electronic attachments. So if I have a copy of a business case in Word, or maybe a copy of a vendor quote in PDF, I can attach it here as well, or backup schedules, right? The goal here is to make budgeting and forecasting more collaborative, avoid all of those one-off emails and phone calls, and get all of your budgeting and forecasting information into one central area where it's all being backed up. You never have to worry about it going missing. Other things that we allow you to do, we have a whole series of data tools, and these data tools allow for rapid manipulation of your data. And there's a lot of different ways that they can do that. So if I want to do spreading, let's say I want to do, just divide this equally over the 12 months, I can do that and hit replace, and you see it'll do all the math for me. But if you want to build in trending rules into your things, maybe you have parts of the year where you've got seasonality, you can actually build those rules into your system where maybe it allocates more to the summer months and less to the winter months. Or maybe you want to automatically base trending based on how your last year's numbers went. You could actually base your numbers this year on trending on how it went last year. We also give you the ability to do bulk increases and bulk decreases as well. So if I wanted to decrease all of these numbers by 23.5%, instead of going cell by cell by cell, I could do that right here in line. Or if I wanted to increase everything by a set amount, I could do that right now. So again, we're giving you the ability to do rapid manipulation and increase the accuracy of your numbers without any additional effort that goes along with it. Now, other things that we support. I've been showing you doing dollar-based entry up to this point. We also support driver-based budgeting as well. So if you want to start putting in rates, quantities, how many people you're going to serve, things like headcount, we can support that as well. So it's not just capturing dollars. And certain numbers put into the system can automatically drive other numbers. So as an example, you see down here, kitchen and cleaning supplies, right? That's in blue. I can't change it, okay? But if you look up here, if I go and I adjust my headcount number, you'll see my kitchen and cleaning supplies is being driven off of headcount. So certain numbers being entered in can affect other numbers that are put into the system. So again, give you all that ability to capture, things that are also relevant to your business, right? Headcount may make a big difference, or quantity you're going to solve may be more important than the actual dollars. The quantity may be more important because, again, that drives production or anything along those manners, okay? Other things, and I know I'm going fast. I just want to make sure we give you enough time to see everything that we do. We give you the ability to add roll-ups of your numbers. So right here, you see employee training. I'm actually budgeting for additional classes. So instead of having all these other subschedules, I can put all of this information online in one place in real time. And when I hit save now, not only does it save all the top line numbers, but it's going to save all the detailed line numbers. So again, when I go to submit for approval, my boss has everything that I need to see. Or 6 months from now on an income statement, I can actually see what did we budget for employee training. Just quick as this, expand out without having to go hunt and peck and hunt and search for all these other backup documentations. Other things that we give you really quickly. You see how some of these icons have gone from green to yellow to red? That is our visual clue that this person is not meeting the guidance rules that you have laid out. So every time you do a budget, odds are you're giving your people targets that they need to hit, right? Well, instead of relying on them to remember to do that, you can actually build those rules into TrueSky and give your people immediate feedback as to what is wrong with their numbers. Again, this is how we make budgeting, again, improve the accuracy of your numbers and reduce a lot of that back and forth that comes back, and you're going to be able to get more control of the process. Now, really quickly, I want to switch gears here a little bit from the budget capture to more the analytical side. One of the things that the finance group gets hit up constantly with is, okay, can you tell me where I'm at on my budget? How did I spend my money? Has this PO come through yet, right? Especially when budgeting, or even later on when you're putting out reports like income statements, P&Ls to your department heads. Well, instead of you having to do all that work from them as accounting and finance professionals, why don't you let your end users do self-service, right? So right here, I'm going to do my little link. And what this is going to do is do a real-time up to the second drill down back to the source data system. And in this example, show me all the AP and purchase order transactions that I have in the system that relate to my department and my location. And again, these views can be different, whether you want to show general ledger information, whether you want to show receivables, order entry, inventory, whatever the case may be. But once I have this information up on screen here, what can I do with it? Well, right now, maybe I want to do my analysis. Maybe I want to start sorting it lowest to highest or highest to lowest. Or maybe, you know what, I just want to see what my big ticket spend was. And how much did my big ticket spend come to? Well, my big ticket spend came to $25,000. So that's one view right there for me, right? Now let me clear that out. Now maybe there's a different way I want to look at it. Maybe grouping it by account name is helpful here. So now I can see I'm spending money on company cars. Maybe I want to pull the vendor in. Right there I go to say supply software. You can see I'm spending with Adobe CamSoft Mobile Warehouse. Well, there is a tablet purchase that got booked to my software account. So it got booked to the wrong account or the wrong department. Again, the goal here is to give all of your people information at their fingertips and offload a lot of the work that normally falls into the accounting and finance group, and pretty much let them do their own ad hoc reporting as an end user. Other things you can do with TrueSky: complete financial statements. So again, any data that we have in TrueSky, you can report on it, whether it be, a headcount report or whatever, or presentation quality financials like I'm showing you here. And again, these can all be configured for how you want it to look. But if you look here, I'm able to combine things like actuals for the first part of the year along with budget for the rest, so you can end up as a forecast for where you want to be. And again, I can drill down to multiple levels of detail, including getting all the way down to source transaction kind of stuff if I want to through my drill downs. Right? So we're giving you the ability to set up all these kind of documents. And again, you can print these out if you need to, obviously email them and so forth. The final thing you can do with TrueSky, and I'll do a wrap-up slide and we'll load up for questions, dashboarding. Okay. So this is an example of a dashboard, but we were also making dashboards interactive. So instead of just showing you where you're at, maybe you want to play with the numbers. So what happens if potentially we can increase revenue by 100%, but we can't do that until August? What does that affect our net income? And if we're going to cut expenses, by 50%, and we can do that right away, how does that affect things, right? So with TrueSky, you get the ability to do budgeting and forecasting of any business process, deep dive analytics, reporting, and dashboarding. So that kind of gives you the kind of an overview of the software. I'm going to do a wrap-up slide here, then we will open it up for any kind of questions here. So again, just to reiterate, budget, plan, and forecast for any kind of business process, as well as report and dashboard on all of that type of information. And with TrueSky, you're going to get all of the strengths of Excel, but with all the added control that you don't have today, but that's what we're bringing to the table, along with some of our additional productivity tools that go along with TrueSky. And at the end of the day, that is going to give you an enterprise budgeting and forecasting solution, where you're going to have one version of the truth, centralized control. You're going to have not just data, but actionable information that's going to help you reduce risk and avoid your surprises. So before you drop off, thank you very much for taking time out of your day to watch our presentation. I know we're coming up on the long weekend and everything else, so we really do appreciate it. If you'd like more information, please contact LBMC, or you can go out to our website. You can see our information down below there. More than happy to do another more in-depth demo for you, maybe something a little bit more personalized, again, depending on your industry, and talk about your specific needs. And then more happy to talk about, what a project might look like for you, as well as giving you, a full proposal. So with that, I am going to shut up for a minute here and see if we have any questions. But again, I thank you for taking the time, and I'll turn it back over to Sarah here.
Thank you, Alan. We actually do have a few questions. The first one is there a limitation on the number of dimensions used?
Okay, great question. So from a technical perspective, there is no limit on the number of dimensions that you can have in a data model. You could have thousands if you wanted to. I think from a real life, having done this now for coming up on 25 years, and how humans interact with some of these reports and slicing and dicing it, I think there is a practical limit from what is a best practice and a best design to make your people the most effective. But from a technical point of view, there is no limit within TrueSky to how many dimensions you can maintain.
Okay, great. And are there any line limitations?
Are there any line limitations? So I was wondering if you're talking about my line item details at little sub-level, or number of lines in a report. If you're talking number of lines for line item detail, no, there is no limit. Just like there is no technical limit in a report. Technically, we would be limited to the number of rows that Excel supports. I believe that is 1 million right now, off the top of my head. So if you've got more than 1 million rows in your report that you want, maybe we'll figure out a different way to approach it for you.
Okay. All right. And then can the user define the budgeting criteria, or does this come preset?
The budgeting criteria, I'm not quite sure what you're asking for. Let me try to answer a question, and if it's not, what you're looking for, please follow up with a follow-up. So when TrueSky gets configured for your deployment, you as the end users, the client, are going to be able to configure TrueSky to capture the type of data that you want it to capture. Okay. TrueSky is about structured data capture, right? So what you don't want is 100 different users in your company budgeting 100 different ways, because then you're back to that nightmare of Excel and trying to merge data and bring it all together. So the concept here is you can create these input sheets once. They render themselves automatically for each individual user based on their security. But because you're doing things in a structured type manner, you get that immediate real-time roll-up of all of your data to manage the process. So I hope that answers your question. So in the end, this will get configured for you and the type of processes and how you want it to work. But within your users, and again, different user groups can have different layouts as an example, but we're not the kind of thing where you're letting 100 different users do it 100 different ways, so to speak. And again, follow up if that's not what you were looking for, or I got the answer wrong.
Okay. Yes, if anyone else has any other questions, please feel free to reach out to your strategic account manager, or reach out to us directly. But Alan, we'll wrap up here now, as it's just about 11:30. But thank you everyone for attending. Like I mentioned, we will send out a recording of this session, and we appreciate everyone attending, and have a great day.